first step, you're beginning to plan. This is very surface level, very not in depth by any means, but just kind of starting to get your feet wet, figuring out what you want, where you want it, and starting the planning process at the very, very, very beginning. So first, you need to pick your general location, your state. Where are you going to have your wedding? Are you going to have it in the state that you live in? Are you going to have it in your home state? Are you going to do a destination wedding? Are you going to say, screw all that, I'm going to the courthouse? So picking your general location. And each one has its own kind of pros and cons with destination weddings or elopements or staying where you're at or going where your family's at. There's a lot to think about. So you need to pick generally where you want to stay. A lot of the times it's way easier on the couple who's actually planning it to try to keep it local. However, it can be tricky if you live in a state way far away from where your family and friends and a majority of your guests live. In that case, it's like you might as well do a destination wedding. So you kind of gotta weigh those options. If you live where most of your family lives, then it becomes a lot easier. You can pick a venue close to home that you can go and visit and do walkthroughs and design your layout, and it gets easier. But either way, you gotta pick your general location. I would say a lot of people get nervous that if they do an out-of-state wedding or a destination wedding or a wedding where not a lot of their family and friends are, that no one's going to come to it. And I promise you, your most important family and friends will come. You will have people at your wedding. If the people that you're inviting love and care about you, they will go to wherever your wedding is to see it and to be there and to be a part of it. So I wouldn't really worry about that. If you're inviting distant relatives and distant cousins and friends of so-and-so, then they might not want to pay to fly out there and lodging and all of those costs. But your parents, your close aunts and uncles, your grandmas, your grandpas, your best childhood friends, they're most likely going to show up wherever it's at. Then you got to pick your time frame, your season that you're wanting to look at, and that will kind of marry in with the kind of venue that you are going to want, indoor versus outdoor. If you really want an outdoor wedding, your best bet is like later springtime, out of the rain, or early fall, where the weather is cool and the sun isn't so harsh, but it's not super rainy, but it's not snowy. Or you can just have a summer wedding if you're somewhere like in California where you're close to the beach and there's a breeze. All of these things kind of matter. So time frame is very big. A typical wedding season is towards the end of spring through like fall. You really won't have too many weddings in like winter to the very beginning of the year. You'll have some here and there who want holiday weddings, but it's not super saturated. So that's also something to think about when picking a venue or picking a location, because it will matter with venue availability. So if you're picking a time like June or July or August, which is going to have lots of weddings, it's going to be trickier to try and find your date at a venue that you really, really want, especially if you're planning a wedding that's in a few months versus a few years. So even time frame with how far out your wedding is going to play a big factor. A lot of the times you're going to want to find a place and find a date and start getting things locked in. So you need to know, I really want to get married in 5 months, or I'm going to get married a year from now, or I'm going to get married 2 years from now. So if you're getting married in 5 months, a lot of things are going to be a lot harder and trickier to plan than if you have 2 years. But a lot of the times that's so far out, so much can change, so much can happen in 2 years. So a good happy point is starting to plan a year out from a date. And then start thinking about what your resources are with vendors, with families, with friends. who do you know? What do they do? So do you have connections with a florist that can give you a discount, or do you have a friend of a friend who owns a venue, or kind of starting to see what your resources are, what you can afford, all those little things adding together. And then that kind of makes it up. So you're beginning to plan, you got to pick your general location, your timeline, what your resources are, your vendors, your family, your friends, and then you also have to think about guest amount. How big is your wedding going to be? So do you need to plan for a small intimate wedding? Well, that's going to be a lot easier to plan than a big grand wedding, so you got to start thinking about that as well. And you're on your way to beginning to plan your wedding. Bye.